been given that this is for API automation with REST assured. So this is what we have been shared. And are we starting from directly from the REST assured we are doing with this? Probably not. Why? Why means see boss, we came for API automation with REST assured. If you're telling nonsense and if you're wasting our time, you'll drop. But if I wanted to go, means for just think in this direction, you wanted to write a particular novel, or if anything, so directly we'll just jump into the novel and then you'll write the novel. No. So first of all, what you'll try to do, I'll write from, means first I will try to learn the alphabets. Then I'll try to learn the words. Then I'll try to uh, learn the words, and I try to learn some writing the paragraphs. Actually, it was a little bit distracting because people are joining. Okay, so then I'll try to learn to write some words, and then I'll try to write some paragraphs. Then if I learn to write the paragraphs, then I'll try to write for uh, a particular novel. So this is what, when you wanted to do that novel writing, whatever your thoughts which you are coming to a mind, so that you wanted to write some crime thriller novel, so that you can write that. But before writing that one, so these are the prerequisite steps and the basic things which you have to learn, right? So now once you have been learned all these things, writing a novel would be a big difficult or tough? Probably not. Now what I wanted to say over here holistically is, if you learn the prerequisites, rest assured you will learn in 1 hour. Mark my word, the rest assured tool, only you need to learn 2 classes. If you learn 2 classes, rest assured tool is nothing. I'm very serious. Uh, I'll make sure within half an hour you're able to write all get post request methods, and then you can write it. At the same point of time, within 1 hour, you learn the complete tool. But there are some certain set of prerequisites which we need to learn before jumping into this rest assured. Okay, let's quickly, because since last 1 hour, I just quickly made some quicker things for you. I'll just try to share those information so that we can discuss about it. So these are our basic agenda. Okay, before jumping into the agenda and these things, guys, we will be having this. Just I will talk about the timings. The timings is 11:30 to 1 o'clock. We will have this session, and then for Saturday and Sunday we are engaging. So this Saturday, Sunday, next Saturday, Sunday, we are planning to have these sessions. And what is the timings we'll be having it? So 11:30 to 1 o'clock is our timing, and there are it break into 2 sessions. The first session will be 11:30 to 12:20. So please give me a reminder at 12:20 so that I'll stop, because I'll never see the time when I was in these sessions. And the next one is at 12:30 to 1 o'clock. So that would be a quick recapping and then doing the last parts of the session. So that is session 2. So that we will do it for today and tomorrow and for the next week. So this is what the plan of action. So within 4 sessions, are we sure that I can write the program and doing this coding? I'm 100% sure. If you are having the prerequisites and learning the rest assured, writing the code by next Sunday, means we are taking only 4 classes. With the 4 classes itself, I'll make sure to write the code. And I'm not talking about the framework and all those stuff that anyways that comes in the later part of other things, but at least you will know what is rest assured and how to write an automation code and how do the things and all. So these are the things which we can do from this session. Now, what is means the basic objective of this session, or what you guys are expecting from this particular session? Okay, randomly I'll ask this question for you people. So Vignesh, so what's your expectation on this one? I think there are 2 Vignesh, right? Okay, 1 Vignesh.
Vigneshwaran or
Yeah, you go ahead, Vignesh.
can you repeat the question, Chris? Sorry.
What is objective? Means what you're trying to learn from this session.
Yes. So in my opinion, like we have to learn about like the basic of API. Why APIs come to the development part. So how we can be able to implement in this development of applications. Then how we are going to be testing this kind of all the stuffs like that. In my opinion, I'm from my side. So like
Okay,
this. Yeah.
cool, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vignesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Thanks.
Samar, what your expectation on this?
As per my understanding, I have to learn as per the business answer. So we have to learn what is the API, for what purpose basically we use this API, and difference between the API like SOAP and REST API and legacy API, those things.
Cool, cool, not a problem. And Vasant, what your expectation from this this particular session?
Yes, Krish. Basically, we want to understand what is meant by API and what is the use of those and how it is implemented in a project and how the testing will be performed and what are the types of uh, uh, testing we can be done using API. So that's all.
Cool, cool. Abhilash, so what's your expectation?
Yeah, Krish. So I just want to try to understand what is API, how they're gonna work, and how we can test them manually and automatically. So how we gonna use this rest assured tool in automating the APIs?
Excellent, excellent. Guys, in interest of time, I'm not asking all. So by this time itself, I think you might be thinking something what I need to answer for this guy. So at least you have been taught through, right? So what is the basic things we wanted to get it? So the basic objective of this session is these 3 pointers from my point of view. The first thing is simple. I need to write the API automation code from REST assured tool. That's it. See now, if you give me any particular endpoint or API, if I given to me, so I need to take that and I need to write the automation code. So that's the first request. And the second thing is, we do have some prerequisites are there. A list of a big prerequisite list is there. So from the prerequisites, almost all I'll discuss about all the things, but except one particular topic which I'll not talk is Java, because already we were having the separate sessions and the course is going on because 2 batches were already undergoing on this. So from morning 8 to 9 and then 9:30 to 10:30. So we do have the Java batches are going on, right? So I'll not talk about the Java, but apart from that particular Java, what are the topics are there? I'll be discussing about that. And this particular sessions are targeted for the beginners. Now, means there might be some experienced people already there. You might be writing the comments already. You know what is this APIs and all these things. But this complete sessions and these things would be focused on the first basic terminologies, or what is this particular API, where it is born, or why we should require this one, or how to use this one. So those all things will be discussing in these particular sessions, in these particular 4 sessions. Okay, so now basing upon this one, so first of all, I just wanted to talk about, because before starting what is our API or what is these things all. So first of all, I wanted to know if you wanted to learn the REST assured API automation. So what are the things which I need to learn? So this is what the prerequisite checklist for learning the REST assured. So what is means actually I have been classified into 2 sections. One is the mandatory list which we need to learn, and one is the optional list which we need to learn about this. Now, when I wanted to do the automation for something, means in our testing pyramid. So in the testing pyramid, we'll be having the first units, and second one is the APIs, and the third one is the UI layer. Now, in this particular APIs, so first of all, I should understand what is this particular APIs, where this particular APIs has been born, and what are the basic differences? Because nowadays we are rightly misusing all the terminologies. We will be saying that microservices, some people will say that web services, and some people will say that APIs. So we should know the differences, right? What do you mean by a microservice, and what do you mean by what is a microservices, and what is a web services, and what is an API? Because every time when I asked sometime our team members, they'll say this is API automation. Sometimes we'll say that web services automation. Sometimes we'll say that RPC automations, and sometimes we will talk about microservices automation. So now we should be able to differentiate exactly what is this microservices, and what is this particular APIs, and what is this particular web services, and how all these things should be related. So even we should understand those things, right? Okay, now I understand what is a difference between a microservice, web services, and API. First, then I should understand what is API. Okay, and what are the different type of APIs? Okay, what are the different type of APIs? REST APIs, RESTful APIs. What is the difference between REST and RESTful APIs? Okay, what is a REST API? What is a SOAP API? And what is a JSON RPC? What is a XML RPC? What are these particular differences? Why I should use the REST API, REST APIs? Okay, now I understand all these things. Now I understand what is a REST API. Now, if you know what is an REST API, then how to test this particular REST API, or what are the validations I need to test this one, or why I should test this particular REST API. Okay, I understand that. These are the REST APIs, and these are the reasons why to test this particular thing. And then I should understand with what the things I need to test it. And what are the tools available in the market to test this particular REST API? What are the open source tools available, or what are the commercial tools available in this? Okay, now I'm talking about manual, because until unless a tester tests a particular APIs manually, he can't do that one as an automation. So always I give the thumb rule for all us, the team members or the students, saying that if you wanted to become a good automation engineer, you should become a good manual tester. Then only you can become a good automation engineer. So you should know what are the validations, or what are the things I need to test it from the API perspective manually, and what are the tools available. So first I should understand that, then I can go back and then I'll test it with the automation. So now, what are the tools available in market which I can test manually for these APIs? First, I'll try to do that one, and then I'll understand what are the tools are available for the automation. And out of this particular tools, why we are talking about the REST assured tool. So we'll talk about that, and then we will come to the REST assured. So if you wanted to reach to the REST assured, so this is the journey which you are trying to do now. So in this particular sessions, so we will be discussing about these all perspectives which I have been talked now. Okay, so here the basic, the first pointer is, first we will be talking about all the basic concepts of the API automation, sorry, API concepts. And the second thing is we'll be talking about the API manual testing, and we will discuss about those details. And Java. So definitely, because as we are running two sessions in the morning every day, so I'll not touch about the Java, because the REST assured tool has been implemented the REST assured tool need to be implemented in Java. So that's the reason we should know about the basics of Java, and then we should have to use almost 90% in this particular batch. So I know that the people has been already started Java, or someone is middle in the Java, someone completed the Java. So now at least you're able to understand creating a class file, and then in one class file calling two particular classes, and then creating an object for a classes, and then executing it, getting the result, and getting out of the console. So these things already we can do that. So if you have that level of information is also enough, so that we can complete this particular training course. And next one is BDD. Boss, you are telling me rest assured. Why BDD comes into the picture? See, I don't wanted this. Means I wanted to learn the API automation, but what is a point of learning the BDD? Because the REST assured tool has been implemented in the BDD approach. What is this BDD? You're talking BDD, behavioral driven development. Okay, in the behavioral driven development, what is these things are there? Oh, given, when, then. So these statements we should learn about it. Why? Because always in the REST assured, whenever you're triggering any particular commands and then getting the responses, always you use the BDD patterns. We will not get into the details of that particular implementation, but at a high level, we need to learn about some keywords, because complete statement will be written in the BDD format. So that's a reason we should learn about the BDD. Okay, understood. Next, what? Next, JSON objects. Why JSON? Why not any other things? Because once you've taken all your responses, now you will mean the we asked for something. For an example, I went for a sweet shop and I asked him 5 kilos of sweet. So can he give me all sweets throwing on me so that I can catch and then carry all 5 kilos sweet? Probably not. He will be keeping me into all the sweets into the 5 kilo sweets into the 5 boxes, so that I can carry that 5 boxes in a cover, and then I can come back. So now, so the same way, all this particular data would be stored in the format of JSON. And then once we created a JSON object for that, it is easy to access that particular data. Wow. Excellent, right? Now, the same way how the sweet boxes, I'm carrying it back. Now, once I got the data, I'll keep everything into the respective boxes, and I'll carry that particular data, and then I can access one object by one object and then get that particular data from there. So for that one, we should know what is a JSON object and how to create a JSON object and how to access the data from the JSON object. So those are the things we'll be discussing over here. Okay, clear. And we do have next thing, JSON path, JSON path, Jackson. So what is this? Is this a rhyming words or which are trying to use it? See, now you created the new object. Okay, now means all these things you are trying to access, means we need to access them, right? We should, a way to access means call your means actually there are 5 Abhilash are there. So now out of 5 Abhilash, I need to call one particular Abhilash. So now when I'm trying to call Abhilash, so I need to call a Chintal Cheru Abhilash, come here. So I need to specifically mention his surname, or I need to call him as a Kempula Abhilash. You need to come here. Or GY Abhilash, you need to come here. So now when you are calling a specific element, you are adding something specific to accurately call that respective member, right? The same way we should have certain approaches to call this particular object or particular value. When you're trying to do this one, there are many plugins available in the market to make our life so easy. So just follow this pattern, boss. Even if you have 100 child nodes, you can call accurately, and then you can call those people. So that was a better way which we can call it. So for that one, we should know this particular plugins like JSON path, or Jackson, etc. Many plugins are available. So Pojo. So we do have many things, but out of this all, so probably we will try to access these particular things with GPath and JSON path, so that it is easier to access this one. So we will try to learn about this, and we should know about some accession means we need to know about some libraries. So because in rest assured, so this is the most frequently used libraries are there, the Hamcrest library and then accession libraries. So these libraries, we should know about that, and we should know how to use them. So anyways, this particular part on the implementation also we can learn about it, but this is a prerequisite. We should know what is this Hamcrest library. We'll go to the Java docs and we will see what are the methods and these things are available for these particular libraries and how to use them. So that we will check it out there. And these are the things which are mandatory, which we need to learn. And the optional are TestNG and Maven. So if you learn the TestNG, you can have the complete control on your execution. So it says that, boss, you execute first, you execute next, and then once after the execution, give me output like this, or you can pass the output like this, and which are the things to be executed, which are the things not to be executed. So all these things will be discussing it. So however, so from Tuesday morning 9:30 to this complete week, we are discussing about the TestNG. So 9:30 to 10:30 class, we are talking about complete TestNG implementation from basics to the higher end. So all the testing, if you wanted to attend for that sessions, you are open, and then you can join for that session. So Tuesday is the starting, and then till Friday we are talking about this one. So by the next week, so you'll be familiar with that, so that you can use with the TestNG. So which it helps to control your complete executions. Okay, next one is Maven. What is this Maven? Okay, Maven is nothing but it's a build management tool. I didn't understand what is this build management tool. See, now when you have written a complete code, means you'll be having some hundreds and hundreds of packages, and then thousands and thousands of files will be there. So we'll make the complete all files build together and then compile together, and then you generate the sources. So don't worry, when we are talking about the Maven, we will talk about what do you meant by build, what do you meant by compile, what is the difference between this, and what do you meant by generating the sources, and all these things we'll be discussing about it. So now this would be a triggering point in our frameworks. When we have been created our frameworks, we will be discussing about this Maven topic in the next week. If someone interested, even they can join for that sessions too. So next Monday to means not this upcoming Monday, after that Monday, we are having 5 days session on this Maven. So what is a Maven, and how to add the dependencies, or what are the advantages of the Maven? So how to add dependencies, and how to add the plugins, and what are the plugins we have it, how to use that particular plugins, and how to add this particular dependencies, how to change this one, and how to have the pom.xml. So there are lots and lots of concepts around this one. So we'll be discussing about the Maven also. But as of now, I just kept it optional, so that for this one, we wanted to focus only from the rest assured point of view. So above things are mandatory and below things are optional, these two things. But when it comes to the framework, then this is also becomes mandatory. So if you wanted to implement that or implement these APIs, then you should know definitely the TestNG and Maven also. So these are the technical pointers or technical prospective view if you wanted to learn the rest assured. Boss, you have been given all, where is rest assured? If you learn all these things, rest assured only 2 classes, enough. One is response class, one is rest assured class. If you learn these 2 classes, respective methods, then you guys don't need to even attend for the session. I'm telling you, right, exactly 1 hour is enough for the implementation of rest assured. But for learning to get to that particular point of 1 hour, you should learn all these particular mandatory technical aspects and then optional aspects, so that within 1 hour, you can learn this. So these are the prerequisites which we wanted to learn about this, and go back to the agenda. So now in these particular prerequisites, I told you, right? So having these 2 particular concepts. Now, what are the basic API concepts and the basic API manual testing concepts? So those are classified into these particular items. So now hope we are clear, right? So what I wanted to give you the information is in which direction we should go and what we are trying to learn out of this particular 4 sessions, and how we will be reaching to our goal. So that is what I just wanted to show you for this particular first 10 to 15 minutes of time. So hope, are we clear, right? Are you with me, guys?
Yes, Chris.
Yes, yes,
Only
yes.
one thing
Yeah, no.
I need to ask.
Okay.
For BDD, we have JUnit, right? That we are going to discuss, no? Or
No.
No,
See, you
okay,
need to
okay.
understand what are the different tools available for the BDD.
Okay.
Now, JUnit is a unit testing framework.
Yes.
It is similar to TestNG.
Yes.
Now, actually, what it been is previously Java is used only by the developers. Now, when they are using it for the developing team, at that point of time, when we are generating our automation frameworks, anyways, our Selenium, we are using Java. Can I use a JUnit? I can take it and I try to use it.
Yeah, we can use it.
Then we do have one guy called Cedric Bust. So Cedric Bust is a founder of TestNG. So that guy was not happy with this. Why? We need to use a development package. Why can't we create something for the specific testing? Then he created the TestNG. So TestNG and JUnit means the TestNG is a bigger picture, having lots and lots of more features. In the TestNG we have it, but in the JUnit we will be having a limited number of features. So that's the basic differences between the JUnit and the TestNG. And this is helpful to organize your executions and control your executions and get your required output. So this is what the TestNG. Now, when it comes to the BDD, there are multiple tools in the market. What are the multiple tools is Cucumber, JBehave, Lectus. Lectus is for Python. JBehave and Cucumber can be implemented for Java. Cucumber can be implemented for Ruby, Python, not for Python, Ruby, C#, and for Java. Multiple languages the Cucumber will be supporting for this.
Okay.
We have that tools. But when the tool itself means the rest assured tool itself, it was developed as a part of BDD. And actually rest assured have 2 versions. One, rest assured means it was supporting with the Java language. We do have another version of this one, rest sharp. So rest sharp is helpful for the C#. So means the C# coding, we can do it. So now, as of now, in this particular course, we will be talking from the point of rest assured implementation with Java. So this is what we are going to discuss as we are using the Java. So for this one, the respective to the tool set which we required to implement is, so there we will be using the JSON. JSON, these are anyways common. TestNG and Maven, we are using it as we are using the Java. But if it is in Python, we'll go for Lectus, and then we use the PyTest. So which is means the TestNG is equivalent to the PyTest. So that is what the comparison. So Lectus is like a Cucumber. So comparison for the BDD tools, comparison for the unit testing framework or supporting framework tools is that. I'll anyways talk about the tools skills, the tool set, at where I'll do the comparison for this. Okay, so let's get started, or any other questions or anything there? Okay, so let's get started, guys. Okay, so fine. So now, guys, just please go on mute until unless you have any questions, so that it means without having the interactions or distractions, we can go it. And I'll try my best to have the interactions between us. Okay. Now, just before we wanted to know what you meant by API, and then how these APIs are there. So now, before jumping into this one, so first of all, we should know about what is means how this API is born. Who is the parents of this particular API, right? So first of all, if I wanted to know about that one, why I came to this particular pointer, we should know, right? A quick brief introduction or history about this one, we should learn it. So now, for jumping into that one, so first we should understand what is the difference between a monolithic applications and the microservices application. So any quick answers on this one? So what do you meant by monolithic, and what do you meant by microservices? So if you have the information, you can share with me, please.
Microservices are like a small task or a functions which is used to get the data from the database to the application.
Okay. And what is
And
monolithic?
monolithic means it directly interacts with the web application direct with the protocol directly interacts with the database. There will be no application API layer or a service fabric layer.
Okay. Okay. So anyone wanted to try on this one? So what is meant by monolithic versus the microservices?
From my understanding, like microservices, it's a small packets we can segregate it. So, but monolithic, like it's only one package. No, there is no separation in it. In my point of view, maybe if I'm not wrong, if I'm wrong, yeah.
Actually, just a few terminologies which you are trying to use it wrong, but still,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Any other pointers, guys, you wanted to bring it up? What do you meant by a monolithic, and then what do you meant by the microservices? Okay, so let me put some information around this one. Before going to this one, so first of all, we need to understand what are the different type of applications we do have it. So this is one of the session which we have already recorded, and we do have it. I'll not go into the details of this, but we should know the basic differences so that it would be much more easier to understand the things. We do have one-tier application, two-tier application, three-tier application, four-tier application, and even we do have the mobile apps. Now, last time we have been a vigorous session on this. It means like 30 to 40 minutes of session is there, but I'll make it very brief because you need to understand all these things so that it would very easy to understand the microservices or the difference between the monolithics and then microservices. One-tier application. Okay, before going to this one, so we should know about another basic concept, which is ISO layers. ISO layers. So what is this ISO layers is we do have 7 layers. I think this is one of the 16 marks question in our BTech. Means a network layer, transport layer, application layer, session layer. So we do have these particular layers, right? Out of these layers, the 3 important layers we need to understand. So what are the 3 important layers is, the first layer is presentation layer. Second thing is business logic layer. And third one is DB layer. Okay, so presentation layer means it is nothing but which we can see with our naked eye, means we can see the particular web applications or anything with our naked eye. So those means, for an example, any web, anything in the client side, if you are able to see, then that is called the presentation layer. Okay, I'll take the example of this. For an example, now I'll do this. So calculator. Now, when I open this one, so this is what my presentation layer, because I'm able to see this one. Okay, I have the digits here and then the symbols over here and operators over here, so that I can use this particular operators and then I can proceed further. Now, when I have this all, so now what I need to do? So when I click this one, so now 2 into 5, so it does the calculation it was giving to me. So somewhere else it was happening, this particular logic was happening. So that this is called the business logic layer, and the DB layer we have it. DB layer is nothing but database layer where we store the complete data. So now these 3 layers, how it is accommodated, then that is where we will be deriving our different type of applications. Means if all these 3 layers are in a single unit, then it is called as a one-tier architecture or standalone application or a desktop applications. right? Now, two-tier architecture, we'll be having a client server architecture, means we'll be having a client and then server, where presentation layer and the business layer or presentation layer will be in the client side, and the business layer and the database layer would be at the server side. So then that is called client server architecture. And the third layer, which we are calling it as a web applications, means presentation layer will be somewhere else, business logic layer will be somewhere else, and then DB will be in somewhere else. Example, usually I take the Gmails. So Gmail, when you open, you can see your inbox, outbox. So that is what your presentation layer, and all your data would be stored in somewhere else in the DBs. And all the business logic layers will be stored in somewhere else in another, I mean, the business logics will be written somewhere else. So this is what our web application, all our web applications will be calling as three-tier architecture. And four-tier architecture is nothing but your distributed network applications. What do you meant by distributed network application? If you see that google.co.in, co.my means google.co.india, co.malaysia, co.us, US, co.uk, UK, co.sg, Singapore. Like this, they will be defining a different terms, because to do the load balancing. Why they should have to do that one? Because some crores and crores of people will be using the Google. So now when they're trying to use this particular Google, so they need to control the traffic, right? If you have too much of traffic, what it will happen? You can't travel from one place to another place. Now from here, I need to go for here, means from the Sholinganallur junction, I need to reach to the Navallur. Now in my travel, I do have lot of traffic. Then I can't go. Now what the traffic police will do, boss, you can go in another direction to reach, means go to the Kelambakam and come back to the Navallur. And few people he will travel from here, and few people he will ask to go in another direction to reach the Navallur. So now ultimately we wanted to reach to the Navallur, but we want selecting the different directions to avoid the traffic. The same way, the network distributed architecture applications are also same. Like for an example, in the Google, when you are trying to search for it, so all Indian sites should go use google.co.in, and all the Singapore need to use SG. All UK people need to use the UK. So like this, we will be having it. So now this is what our four-tier architecture application. And the last one is the mobile applications. So first one is standalone or desktop. Second one is a client server application. Third one is web applications. And fourth one is our network distributed applications. So these are the different type of applications we do have it. Okay, boss, what the session I came and what you are giving to now. Now, it have a reason, because without understanding what type of the application, if I talk about this one, means the monolithics or the microservices, it will be completely vague. So that's the reason I quickly given it within a 5 minutes. I have been recapped it, but we do have 30-40 minutes session on this for explanation of each and every tier. So what is each type of application? We have been in detail there. We have been discussed. Do refer if you require there. Now, when it comes to the monolithics and then monoliths and then microservices, what is the basic differences is, you are seeing this one, right? These layers all together, it would be combined in terms of monoliths. Okay, let's take a small example and then we will see how this monolith applications will be there. If you see here, I taken one small example of online shopping. Okay. Online shopping. So in this particular online shopping application, I'll just try to remove this one for the clear picture. In this one, we do have a customer search and he can view the items. Think that we do have Amazon server. So means we are using the Amazon services. So what we will try to do, we will search for an element. For an example, I used to search for the boxing glove. So I'll search for the boxing glove and what are the different type of boxing gloves we'll be having it. We will see it. We can add to the cart and we can do the checkout and billing. And once the checkout and billing happen, it went to the finance team for the processing these things, and shipping and delivery comes into the picture, which is the OMS, order management system will comes. Now, if I have all these particular modules into a single complete component. Now it is not, there are a lot of features, but I have written everything into a single component and then I have written the code and then I have been used it. Then this is called monolithic server. Sorry, monolithic architecture. So these are the architectures. Okay, microservice microservices is an architectural design and monoliths are architectural design. So this is architectural designs comparison I was trying to do it now. So now what it was happening, so all these particular applications has been, means what are the disadvantages of it one? So if I use the create this one, I'll be using the Java
Chris, sorry to
or
interrupt.
yep.
In between your voices break it. Again, can you repeat that? What is architectural? What is this one? Again, come again.
This is architectural designs. Now, when you
Okay.
wanted to design an application, what is the architectural design you wanted to pick it up? Whether you wanted to go with the monoliths or microservices or event-driven architecture. So which type of architecture design you wanted to implement your application. So this is what the architectures. Now, by this word itself, you can understand that microservice is an architectural design. Microservices and APIs are not same. APIs will be used in the microservices. APIs and microservices are completely different. If someone is using the synonyms like that, that is absolutely wrong. You shouldn't use microservices and APIs as same, because that is Apple, this is orange. Apple will not become orange at any point of time, because microservices is an architecture. In this architecture, we are using the APIs. The parent of the API is the microservices, which I'll drill it down by this particular conclusion. Okay, just hold on for a minute. Now, coming back to here, this is monolithic architecture where all these particular features will be combined, and this will be writing into a single programming language, like either it's a Java or Python or PHP, whatever the things you wanted to use, that particular programming language, you'll use it, and then you'll be developing this particular monolithic applications. And all the features are there. And all these things will be connected to a server, and from the server, it would be interacted to the users. Means all these things would be hosted. Hosted means I need to keep somewhere else where it can be accessed by the people, right? This is called hosting. I written all my program, all my coding for this one, and I written all these things, and all things are hosted. Means all things are combined into a single component. I was hosted into a server. Now, what are the disadvantages of this one? If at all, if something goes wrong, the complete system will goes wrong. Means if server goes down, all things are done. If customer online is not working, so then we can't use other things, because it's a joint thing, right? So if something is not working, complete whole thing, we can't use it. And if there is a bug, I need to, for example, there is a bug in the checkout and billing. Now, I don't not only even check here, I need to run the regression for this, and this. I need to check the complete application. Even the bug is here, there might be impact in this all, because this code have a common code integration. So these are the disadvantages, and this is how the monolithic applications has been designed. So now later on, so we feel that, oh, we do have a lot of disadvantages with this one. So it means it was taking the time, or this was taking a lot of the time, and the cost was increasing more. So we need to go to the next level. So that is what it comes into the microservices. Now the same thing how we have been done over here, just you can see it over here. Now we do have a different components we have been written for this. The same previously it have been completely console, right? Now what it has been done, it has been divided into it was divided into a simple independent components. So now when we have been loosely coupled or divided these particular components, so these are called microservices. So micro means it's a smaller services. Dividing a particular component into a smaller parts and using that one is called the microservices. Now, if you see here, the customer online and search, I created one component, and add to the cart one component, checkout and the billing one component, and backend finance processing one component. And if you see, the best advantage of the thing is this team have the good knowledge in the Java, then they can go ahead and do it in Java. And this team have a good knowledge in the PHP, they can go and do it in PHP, and .NET and Node.js. So what is this called? Combination of multiple languages, then that application called as? If we are using multiple languages to build a particular application, what is that particular application called as?
Microservices.
No, it's
that's
called
not.
as
platform.
polyglot application. If you are using one language, if you are using multiple languages to create a particular application, then it is called a polyglot application. You go for Google, you go for Freshworks or Amazon, you go for any greater company. The people will not restrict you on your technologies. The people will not restrict you on the languages. Because whatever you are convenient, whatever you are fast and speed, so wherever you are furious, take that particular language and develop the applications. So that's how, so these particular means each and every component will be divided, means they will be created as an independent component with the different languages. And if you see the communication you are trying to do it in this particular component, we are using two protocols, which is HTTP and HTTPS. HTTP, and what is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? Okay, what is
Security,
HTTP?
HTTP?
non-security.
What is HTTP?
Hypertext protocol.
That's the protocols. So these are the protocol. What do you mean by a protocol?
Rules.
Protocol is
A
nothing
set
but
of rules.
a set of rules, how it need to transfer from one place to another place. For an example, I'm traveling means in a flight. So what I'll be doing is I'll be doing the security checks, onboarding activities, and then I need to wear my seat belt, and I need the rules and regulations will be having it. If I'm traveling in a car, then I need to wear my seat belt. I was going. So everything will have a set of rules and regulations when you're traveling, right? So the same way, whenever I'm sending particular data or some communication, if it is happening, so I'll be using the HTTP or HTTPS protocols. So the HTTPS means it is security, means it was more secured. So there is a certificate which will be adding it. With this means with the help of these particular protocols, we are transferring the data. But with what we are trying to transfer the data, that is what the API. So this is where the APIs are born in the microservices. If you wanted, means every microservices have its own APIs, which is what you need to understand. So microservices are helpful to, means it's an architectural design which is helpful to design and develop an application into a smaller chunks. And once the services has been developed, for every services we will be having the APIs to transfer the data from one point to another point. See, idhar ka maal udhar ka maal idhar. This is what APIs do. That's it. Nothing more than this. And somewhere, if you wanted to do some manipulation, see, now I was taking this when I was giving to him, I'll do something. Okay, I'll take a 100 rupees note from 2000 rupees bundle. I'll take it and then I'll do some manipulation. If I wanted to do it, I'll do it. So that also we can do it in the APIs. But the basic purpose of a API. So what do you meant by API? First of all, what is the expansion of an API?
Application
Programmable interface.
Application?
Program interface.
Programming interface. The interface means it will form a bridge between two applications. Guys, you need to understand what do you meant by API, because that's where the difference between the web services will comes into the picture. API will help you to interact between two applications. This will act as a bridge between two people to connect, to make the data transfers. That's it, with a specific commands and specific requests. So that is what an API. And the parents for this one, the basic parent for this one is this microservices. In the microservices, we started to use this particular APIs. Okay, now means what are the other advantages and disadvantages on this one? I'll quickly go through this one now. So now, if you see in terms of cost, means I told you, right, in terms of cost, these APIs are much more helpful for us. What in terms of cost, how it would be helpful? So let's see here. Now, for an example, if it is a monolithic application, we do have one server, and if I wanted to increase for means for an example, there is a big billion day coming for me. Or the great Amazon sale is coming. Now, what I need to do means usually I do have 10,000 users, but on big billion day, I'll be having 1 lakh users. So for 10,000 users, I may have one server. For 1 lakh means, will I need to get the 10 servers? I need to bring it back. Obviously, at that point of time, we need to bring the 10 servers there. If the users are getting doubled, I need to make this the servers also double to serve that particular request. It is as simple as this one, guys. You means now we are in the group 46 people, right? We all went for a hotel. If me and my 3 friends are going, So we will occupy one table. If we all 46 people are going for a hotel, will be sufficient in one table? I'll be taking another 10 tables where all 46 people will be sitting. Now, one server will come and he'll ask, boss, what do you want? Then I'll say, boss, I need some idli and masala dosa. I'll order him. So now what can he serve for all 46 people? No, he can't do. Then what he will say, Macha, you come. He will call his other friends, other servers also. So he call, boss, I'll take first four tables. You take next 4 tables. You take next 4 tables. He will make the people to serve this. And now what I'll do, boss, I ordered for the table 1. I ordered for one masala dosa, one idli, and 2 plates of puri. So then he will collect all these things. Means he is collecting the request and he was taking the order. And what he will do, he will go and say, he will say that, chef, we got this particular request, serve this. So now that guy will make up, he will try to put all dosas and everything, and then he will take it, and then he will give, and he'll come back, and then he'll give it to me. Means he takes the request and he will give back the response. As a response, what is my response? I asked him to give me idli, he served me idli. Right? So if I ask puri, he will be supplying me with the puri. So what you need to understand is, in a hotel, so how we are requesting a server, and the server, he is giving me back the response with whatever I have been request. This is what an API will do. With the help of this particular APIs, I'll request him, I'll get that particular response, and then I'll keep it with me. Now I have more number of requests, more number of things, means more number of clients increased. Now what I need to do at the time, have a parallel service. So that is what here it was happening in the monolithic application. But when it compared to this, when it comes back to the microservices, now you see here, this the load is increasing on these two only, on the customer online only. If you see here, previously like this, we are using one server. Now as the load increased on this, I can only spawn for that. Here when I wanted to take the server, then I need to take 1 terabyte of space, and then at least the 64 bytes of RAM, so which I need to take that high end servers, I need to take it. But here it is not required. I can take a lower end server, because only for this particular component I was trying to make a load increase, for not for all others. So this is the beauty of the microservices. Now where it was increasing, we can increase on that particular component itself rather than increasing in all. But whereas in the monolithics, we are not left with an option. So we need to, if the users are increasing, we need to use to maintain a huge number of services, huge number of servers. So that will go away. So that's the basic advantages and advantages when it compared to the monolithics. And if suddenly you don't want it to, means something is not working, backend finance and then shipping delivery, it is not working, but still the application can work, right? With these 3 things, because users are accessing only these 3 components. If these 2 components are having a bug or some issue, we can down this for some time. At least those users will not be the users can start doing their shopping and then adding to the cart, and they can do the billing. But whereas in the monolithics, we are not left with an option. If something is not working, it is a downtime for all the people. So this is how the microservices architecture came into the market, and then it became more popular. So before before 10 years, we are used to use the monoliths. After the 2005, after that one, so slowly we have been migrated to the microservices. And when we started to use the microservices architecture, then this particular APIs comes into the picture to do the data transfers. So at that point of time, we have a different type of APIs comes into the picture. So what is the first generation of APIs, second generations of the APIs? That is what we are going to discuss. And before going to that particular part, we need to discuss about something in detail more about the microservices and the API. So I'll not take much time on this one. Okay, it's already 12:21. Now, okay, after the break, what we are going to discuss is, we will be discussing about, we discussed monolithics and the microservices. Here, I'll give little more pointer difference between the microservices and the API, and API versus the web services. And we'll go for, then we will go for the content which we have been created, right? So here, what do you meant by API testing and how we perform the API testing? So those things we will try to cover on this one after the break. That's it for this first session. So I'll catch back at 12:30. So we will continue on this one. See you all. Thanks. The
Thanks,
bridge will be
Chris.
open,
Yeah.
and we will be catching at the same time.
Yes,
Thanks
Chris.
all. Bye.
Yeah.
Resume the recording here. So now we are trying to use the APIs in the microservices. So that is what first we'll discuss. And then we'll discuss about the microservices and the differences between the microservices and the APIs. So once you understand what is this and what is this, by default, you can understand what are the differences. So that's where it was parked into the last. Now, as I told you, so the microservices is a microservice architecture. So this is an architectural structural where we will create an applications. Okay, this is used to create an application. This is an architectural design pattern where we will try to create an application in the smaller chunks or the smaller autonomous services. And then whenever we want that particular service, we will call that service. For an example, payments, I'll call the payment services, or I need to have the contact us, I'll call the contact us, or I need to do the searching. So I'll do the searching component. So this would be divided based upon the modules, and then the respective code will be in the smaller components, which are called as a services. Okay, so this is about the microservice architecture, and even we have been seeing the monolithics. So the monolithics will be having, this is what our presentation layer means, the client browser. For an example, this is the same online example which I continued here. Now in the online, we will be having those particular accessing of the product, or you wanted to have the customer services. Just think about the Amazon. So how the web page will be there. The same thing, everything will be into the same application, and they will be completely accessing into a single server. But whereas now when it comes to the microservices, then it will have a separate customer services and separate the microservices and separate card microservice. So separate, and everyone will have their own respective databases. We can have it. Either they can share the databases, or if you don't want it, you can have the different databases also. And even we will be having the backup. So suddenly the this particular customer support microservice is not working. Immediately there is a backup, other microservice we can up, and then we can run on this. And suddenly the product microservices are not working, so then I can up and run that one. So there will be always a backup, and only for that one, if it is not working, I can plug this particular services, like something like building blocks. Now this block is not fitting, then I'll remove that block and I'll add that block. So it will not interrupt our application, so that 24/7 365 days it would be up and run for our applications. So this is the basic differences we have been discussed for our monoliths, and then this particular microservices, which we have been discussed earlier. Okay, now in this particular thing, so you need to understand that every services, so now this is a customer service, and then this is a product service and the card service. So now this data, if you wanted to interact with the client, there is a bridge. So what is that particular bridge? Is this particular API. So your core functionalities and everything you have been written in this particular customer microservice. Now, if you wanted to interact with the client service, so at that point of time, you'll be using the API. So I explained this particular thing last time also. I'll try to use the same thing. Now, for an example, now I wanted to design a particular user login page. Now here I'll be having username, password, login button. Now here I have the data. Now this is my login page. Okay, I have written my same another microservice I have been written. This is for login microservice I have been written. Now this will have its own DB, the same diagram which I have been drawn here. Now what it will happen is, as this will be used by user. Now what the user will do, he will come to here and he'll enter his username, he enters his password, and he will clicks on this particular button. As soon as he given this data and clicked on this particular button, this will called an API. Okay, so this API, what it will do is, it will take this particular request. Okay, it will take this particular username and password. It will come to this particular microservice. It will come to this particular API, and with the help of this API, it reaches to the microservice. Now in this microservice, what I'll try to do, then it will go to this particular DB and check whether this particular user and password is available or not. So if it is username, this particular user is available, it gives a response back to the API, and the API will give the response back to the front end UI saying that this can be navigated to the home page. See, this is how the API will work for us. And this is how the microservices would be written. All the code and everything would be into this particular component, and the exchange of the data between your client side and to your the backend code will be taken care of. The backend business logics we will be using this particular APIs. And nowadays, what it was enhanced is, rather than having this particular logics into the separate server, few people are implementing those particular logics also into these APIs. Previously, for an example, you wanted to do some CRUD operations in the DB, we will be using to write the store procs. Store procs is nothing but store procedures. Means we are writing all the logics and all the things into the DB level itself. In the DB, you are writing the logics, right? Now, what they have been done is DB, just they will store only the DB in the data here, and all the business logics and everything they are shifting back into the API also. So nowadays the applications, the APIs are changing their different forms. So how to carry or how to handle the business logic layer, or how to handle this one. So this is what it transforming in terms of the APIs. Okay, so this is how the APIs are used in the microservices. Now, the basic differences which you need to understand when it comes to the microservices and the APIs are, so APIs will be used in the microservices. So this is what the basic pointer you need to understand. And so microservices are architectural design or architectural styles of developing an application. So that is what the microservices are. And inside the microservices, we'll be using the APIs. So the APIs it was having set of functions or procedures, or it will help to travel the data from one application to the other application. So it will act like a middle person, like a means he will be act like a translator. So now I told you, right, he acts as a transporter, means he takes the data from here and then deliver the data here, and he takes this response, he carries that request, and he will bring back that particular response to the client. Means the same hotel server example I given it, right? He comes to the client, he will ask what you want, and he go back to the kitchen and he will ask the chef to prepare it, and he get the data and he will get it back to the client. So this carrying of request and response will be taken care by an API. So this is what exactly an API means. Okay, so are we clear, guys? What is the basic difference between a microservice and an API?
Yes, Chris.
Yes.
Cool. Any questions here?
Chris, I have one doubt in the previous, like you have showed, right, microservices architecture diagram. That I have. Can you show the diagram once again?
Sure.
2 minutes, I will finish it. Microservice.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. In this picture, 4 microservices, but 3 and 2 and 4 having the database connections. So how about 1? That will be connected via microservice 3. How it is happening for database connections?
Actually, this is just a diagram representation. Okay. What I wanted to say from this diagram is either a single microservice have an independent database. Okay. Or a microservices can share the database. So that one I just wanted to represent over here. So this even I can draw one more DB and then we can keep it. Or that else this can share this particular DB also.
Yeah, that means each microservice having each DB, right?
Yes, that is the right way of implementation.
Okay. Then only we don't have any dependence whenever it is failure.
Yes. See now, if you see it in this particular example, you can see that one only. See, all customer information 1 DB.
Yes.
So I have 10,000, for example, Amazon have 1 lakh users. Only the users level information we can access in the DB, in that particular DB. So that if something happened to that DB, immediately I can bring up that particular DB and I can do it. So this is only for the users. And this is only for products. In Amazon, approximately you will have more than 10 crores of products.
Yes.
So 10 crores of products, that particular DB is this. Yes. And how to handle the 10 crores of product, that's a completely different approach. Whereas here we have 1 to 2 lakhs of users. So handling this data is different. Handling this data is different. So as it is different databases, I'll follow my different approaches. In the implementation also, we do have a lot of different differences, because the same approach which I followed here, it may not be applicable here. So that's the reason always it is suggested to have a different DB for a different microservices when we wanted to up and run and bring down and doing the mirroring. So all these we do have this LDAP. So means the transaction the DBs we will be having it, right? So those all are different for a different microservice. Those are the transactional DBs. So that's a right way of implementation. These are the advantages of this. I didn't went into that layer because it may take a longer session if you talk about those. Just the reason I have given you at a high level view.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Chris,
You go ahead.
I have a question here.
Yes,
Syed. So, so generally during the sale time, like Big Billion Days or Amazon Great Indian Sale, so there is a high usage of the customer, and they keep on using this. So, is there a mitigation plan there so that if this APIs are not able to support, we'll switch to something else?
See, here means it need to support from the server perspective. See, these endpoints also means that is where we do the load testing. When we do the load testing, we will do it at the API. What we do and the API means at a given point of time, how much load a API can carry. See, for an example, I can lift 50 kilos. That is what my strength. Now I can go for another 60, 70. With very hard effort I can do. If you given me 100, it is very hard, very hard for me. If you given 150, I'm gone. See, every endpoint will have its own capacity of carrying the users or the request. If that it was going that particular request, it can't do that. So it will fail. So the same example, the server. So now 4 people went, a server can easily help. So if at all 40 people went, he can't help all the people. So he will break, the endpoint will crash. So that is the reason we should do the load testing on this one. Say in our pyramid also, first we will do the API, then UI, and then performance, we will go for that. So every endpoint, when a developer developing an endpoint, you need to ask him, what is the capacity of this particular endpoint? Means at a given point of time, how many requests it can serve. So that is what we need to first know about an API. First, we'll come. What is an API? What is an endpoint? And what is a collection? So all those things also we can discuss about it there.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Chris, I have one question that load balancing on the service microservice level is possible. Like, is it done in most of the cases?
I never seen that at a API layer, but they used to do it at a server level.
Server level, yeah.
See, if you now they are doing it at a server level, not at a API level. What they can do is they will drill down the more number of APIs. If means for an example, one API, what it can do, it can take for a thank you page means, and then the payment page all together means it will collect all your credit card details and then doing it all, and then it will collect all, and then it will go to till the thank you page it will do. Now what they can do is they will split that particular APIs also. So that is where multiple APIs comes for a particular, multiple endpoints will come for an API. I'll discuss when I was discussing about this one. See now, for an example, this is one of the application. Okay, so now if you see here, these are the real-time endpoints. So this is one of the client for this. For example, now products. What are okay, you need to understand the difference. Whenever we are giving a particular endpoints to someone, we should have one common language. Endpoints shouldn't be given like as is like this. First of all, we need to convert them into a JSON format, and then that JSON file you should give it to the people. So how to give that JSON format is just if you go here and give a right click, export, and you can have this collection. So now a group of APIs will called as a collection. And these collections can be shared to anyone. If I click export, it will be downloaded into a JSON and then it will be given. So this is what the dev team will give us for the testing. They will create a collection and they'll give it. Collection is nothing but a group of APIs. A group of APIs will form an collection. And just you need to go here and we need to export and convert into this one means the JSON file, and it will give it to us. If I click this API, see now this will be stored into my desktop as a collections.json file, and it give it. So this is how we can transfer one in means a JSON file to others. Or if someone is giving, just you need to come here and click the import, and you can take that particular JSON file. So now whatever the JSON file which I have been kept it here, so then I can just take that particular JSON file, and then I can see now this is what the JSON file. So now if I open this one, it will open me into here. So as this is already there, it might throw replace this one. So I was not doing it. So this is how we do export and import. Now a group of APIs is called a collection. A group of APIs means product API, offers API, search API, users API, payments API. So this is called API. Now in APIs, we will have the endpoints. A bunch of endpoints will form a API, and a bunch of APIs will form a collection. Now here in the APIs, we will be having get, post, put, and delete. Like we have a different type of endpoints. Whenever you are terming this one, you should term this as an endpoint, not an API. API means this product API. Product API will have multiple endpoints, and each endpoint, we will call as each endpoint, and each endpoint may have a different type of request. What is a different type of request is we have get, put, post, and then delete. So now this is what here it was representing it. See, now when you wanted to do a CRUD operations, what do you meant by a CRUD operation? Create, read, update, and delete. So when you wanted to create something into your system, then we'll be using the post request. So these are the HTTP methods. Now, which protocol we will be using in our APIs? We will be using the HTTP or HTTPS protocols, right? For this particular protocols, we used to have certain methods will be available. What are those certain methods? So these are the methods. If you wanted to create a particular record, if you're, for an example, I'll give you certain examples for this. It is very easier for you to understand. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to do a sign up in Amazon. So when I'm trying to do the sign up, so what I'll try to do, I'll give my username, password, my mobile number, email address, and I was trying to do it, right? I need to insert this one into this one. So when I was trying to insert a particular record, then I'll be using post request. Now, I wanted to see what all products are there for the boxing glove. Means already there is some, see now where we are trying to do it. So we are posting from client to server. So that's the reason it is called as a post request. Client to the server. Now here what we are trying to do, here we are requesting from server to the client. So that's where server to the client, we are asking get me water, get me the that particular ball. So now what you are trying to do, somewhere else it is there, from there you are trying to get that one. So now all my data, means all my boxing gloves information or all the customer informations are there. Now when I wanted to only read that particular data, means I wanted to see what are the things are there for that, then I'll try to use get request. So get request will get the data from the server, whereas post request will insert particular records into the system, and even it verifies that particular system. Now the another example for the create or for the post is, you have either taken the same example, right? Username, password, and then login button. As soon as I click this login button, what it was trying to take in the post body, the post will have a body also. Now it will take the username as a post body, password as a post body, and then it will go and verify in this particular DB whether this particular user is exist or not. So that is that is what the post is doing. Whereas a get, it fetches the data from the server and exhibits in the client. Now means for example, I created my user profile and I wanted to change my email ID, or I wanted to change my address, or I wanted to change my phone number. I'll go and then I'll try to do that one, right? So then that is called put. That's a put request. So these are different type of request available for the HTTP protocol. So now here I wanted to do the update. When I'm trying to do an update, I'll be using the put request. For the put request also, I'll be giving a username, for an example, I wanted to go and change my mobile number. So now when I was trying to do it in the put request, I'll pass my username and password, and then I'll click the update button. When I click the update button, it's a put request. It will go and fetch the respective record of yours, so that in that particular record, you can change your phone number or mobile number. So then, or your address, whatever the things you wanted to do it, you can do that. So then that is called the put request. And if you wanted to delete some record, so just you can do the delete. So we will not use this particular endpoint, means this particular request frequently. So API will have multiple endpoints, and each endpoint will have a specific type of request mode, request method. So either it can use post request, get request, put request, and delete request for the endpoint. Whenever you are saying that endpoint, hey, that's a that's a get request endpoint, that's a post request endpoint, that's a put request endpoint. Now the people used to say that API, hey, get API, put API. So that is not exactly, that's not the right terminology to use it. So that's where we need to understand a bunch of endpoints means for each and every endpoint. At an endpoint level, you will have requests. So these are the type of requests: post, put, get. So now either for any endpoint, you will be having this particular request, and a bunch of endpoints will make you the APIs, and a bunch of APIs will make you a collection. So this is the industry standard terminologies. If you're using something in across our organization, that's altogether different story. But as per the industry, you should use these terminologies. So collection will have multiple APIs, and APIs will have multiple endpoints. Each endpoint will have a respective request. So these are the different type of requests we do have it. Now, if you go back and see now in any of the collections. Now, when we are sharing something to anyone, we should share it as a collection. And for that particular collection, what are the APIs we do have it? And for that particular APIs, what are the endpoints you have it? For that particular endpoint, what are the other things I need to learn it? So now that comes to the means what are the things I need to test in from the API, or what are the things we need to test it for the respective endpoint? So that's where we will do it. So that's a next step which will come over there. Okay, now what you need to understand to give the consolidation over here, what means how to have the collections, how to import and export the collections, and what do you meant by a collection, and what do you meant by API, what do you meant by an endpoint, and for this particular endpoint, what are the requests we have, and what are the different type of requests we will be having it. So this is what the consolidated information which we wanted to update. So that's the first pointer which we understand. And second pointer, we understand what is a monolithic and then microservices, differences between that, and microservices and then the APIs, where means how the APIs will be used in these microservices. So this is what we have been discussed. Any questions around this?
One doubt. So the CRUD operation create, right?
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you properly.
Sorry. Now you can hear me, right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. That CRUD operation in the create, that create method is a post. So whenever we are using that post method, so that time already the whatever we are going to create the data, that should be existing in the DB level, or whenever it is creating, after that only it is going to be added in the DB.
Don't worry. So I'll explain you get and how the post and how the put. I didn't get into that. Actually, one of the question before answering that one, I just jumped into that.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, he means our Ashwin Datta asked, right? So how we will have the multiple means, can we have multiple endpoints to carry this one? So that's where I jumped to that one. However, once I come to the each request, I'll show in the Postman. Actually, I thought of getting first into the Postman and show how each get put post endpoints will be there, and what would be a get, what we'll get out from that post, what we'll get. So I'll explain you that there.
Yeah, step by step we can go.
Yes.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so did we understand on this one? So these two parts we have been covered, and now I wanted to go for API and web services, because I'm telling you, right, literally we are misusing these particular terminologies. It is really means we need to know what are the standards, right? So what do you meant by AWS means web services or the API? So do you know the differentiation between them? So can you guess what are the differences we do have it? What do you mean by an API, or what do you mean by a web service? Because always we will talk web services automation, API automation, but we should use the appropriate terms, right? So can I call Apple as orange? You can call it as a fruit, but can you call it as a, I mean, the apple as, or if there are some apples and oranges are there, if I ask you, boss, give me the apple, will I give you orange or apple? I'll give you apple. Or if I go to a market and then give me fruits, then he'll ask what fruit you want. No, I need fruit. No, that is what I'm saying, boss. What fruit you wanted? You need to specify exactly, and you know what is the difference, because when you are trying to do the automation for web services is different. The automation for the API is different. If you don't understand these differences, how you can do the automation for this? Now we are talking about API automation with rest assured, not web services automation with rest assured, right? So you should know the basic differences between a web service and an API. Okay, so I'll not.
Service, I'll try. Web service will have a specific task to perform, and it is not like a bridge. It doesn't carry the information from one microservice to another microservice. Means web service will have a specific logic to perform. That is a web service. API is as you said, it is an interface where we carry the information from one microservice to another microservice. But API can also be a web service.
No, API will be a library, I guess, in my point of view.
Okay, fine. So in interest of time, I'll just try to, guys, I'll take another 5 minutes more and not more than that. It's already 12:59. So I just, because at least we can complete this differentiation and then I'll halt the session. See guys, what is the basic differences between an API and the web services? Or when we wanted to automate the API, what are the things we need to remember? Or when we wanted to automate the web services, what we need to do it? Or when we need to use the terminology web services or API, you should know that differences. One thing is for sure, API and web services are used to help to do the data communication. This also, the web services also helpful to do the data transfer, but between what? See, APIs will help to transfer the data between the applications or between these microservices. But whereas the web services will do on the network between the systems. See, that is applications, and this between the systems. This is on the infrastructure. So that's where we have to be so keen when we wanted to do the automation for the web services. Web services will be, the communication was done on the network between the systems. So now actually if you see the diagram, that's where we can get it. So this is a desktop, this is a tab, and this is a smartwatch, and this is what a mobile phone. So the transfer, the data communication happening between the different systems. So this is called web services. And APIs is nothing but it transfers the data between the applications and between the server services. Actually, means both are same. Means the 90% both are same. But how it is different is this transfers the data in the networks. This transfers the data between the services and the applications. And if you see here, some more differences we have been pointed over here. Now, what are those particular differences means? APIs can transfer the data whether if it is online or offline. But web services, it should be online. Then only we can access this particular endpoints. We can have the online endpoint. See now, for an example, this is the, now I'm not connected to this particular. If I'm not connected to the online system. If the data is everything is stored, if I have the DB immediately, means in the same machine, if I have the DB, I can access this data and then I can do this one, right? If my database is hosted here, see now here we need to understand what is URL, URI, and what is protocol, what is resource, and what is protocol,
what is domain, and then what is resources. All these things also I'll explain when I come to over here. So now when I was trying to do, even if the system is offline, if my DB is in the same system, I can access this, but web services will not do that. The name itself, it was saying that web services, always it works on internet. Even this can work on intranet. Internet means you should have the network connectivity. So that is what the basic differences between API and the web services. So this always works on the internet, and this can be worked in internet and intranet. Both things also it can be worked. So based upon that, the requirement, whether they create the web service or the API. And one more thing, all APIs are not web services. APIs are not web services, but all web services are the APIs. I'll give you a much more detailed explanation tomorrow, because as in interest of time, I'll not explain in detail about this one. But tomorrow, as soon we are starting, I'll give you the example how all APIs are not web services and how the web services are APIs. So this is a thumb rule. So always you need to keep it into the mind. The API, all the APIs are not called as web services, but all the web services are called as an APIs. That's where the people get confused between a web service and then APIs. And the next one is the architectural style. So this is light-weighted and this is heavy-weighted. So why this is heavy weighted means, so always this need to be connected with the different systems where it means if some system is down, it can't transfer the data. So now when it was trying to transfer the data, always it carries that particular data. So when we are creating this particular web services architecture also, it means with a lighter architecture, we can't do it. I'll give you the right examples tomorrow so that we can discuss about it. For this one, I'll give you the example tomorrow, and then I'll start the session on this. And here now, what type of protocols it can support? So now, okay, what are the types of APIs we can have this? So here in the API, it can support for anything. So here we can have SOAP, REST, and XML RPC. These are the different type of APIs. So the SOAP API, REST API, XML API, and we do have other styles also, JSON RPC, and then GraphQL. So other things are there. This can support for anything. The API can support for anything. But whereas the web services can support only for this. RPC means
remote procedure call.
Remote procedure calls. People used to say that request procedure call. No. It's a remote procedure calls. So that's a basic difference between that. However, tomorrow when I was talking about the different APIs, there I'll talk about what is XML RPC, what is JSON RPC, what is SOAP, what is REST. So those things we will discuss as a next step. We are going to discuss tomorrow. Okay. And what are the protocols we will be using it? So the web services can use only one protocol, that is HTTP or HTTPS. But whereas here we will be having multiple protocols we can use it. Means actually we do have lots and other advantages in the API. Means we can have the request response headers and then caching. So what do you mean by caching, and what is the versioning, content, and all things? I'll do one thing, guys. So I think it would be better if I stop here, because without giving the explanation, if I saying everything I'll explain tomorrow, then it's better I can give this explanation tomorrow itself. Okay, so to ramp up the things what we have been discussed for today is so first we have been discussed what is our objective, and then what are the prerequisites we required for learning this rest assured automation. We have been discussed, and we have been learned why it is required, what is the importance of learning this all, and then we went for the discussing on the monolith applications and then microservices. And then we have been discussed about the difference between the microservices and the APIs. And tomorrow, so from here we will be going to start. So we will discuss about the differences between the APIs and then web services, and we'll go for the different type of APIs available in the market, and what are the differences between the SOAP UI, JSON RPC, XML RPC, REST APIs, and then the Graph APIs. So we will discuss about this, and then once after discussing those differences, then we will say how to test a particular API. Using the Postman, I'll show you how to test that particular API. So there we will take one get API, and then here we'll be discussing what are the things will be there. See now, what is this authorization, headers, body, prerequisites, scripts, test settings. So these all things we will be explaining, and what is this particular URL, how we need to identify this one, and what are the different type of requests we will be having it. So these all things will be discussed it tomorrow. So these are the manual concepts which we are trying to discuss. So which we will be discussing on this. And then what are the different type of validations we will do it in the API automation. Means the request header means if someone given you an endpoint, what to test, what are the validations you need to do, the set of validations we'll be talking over here. And next we'll be discussing about what are the different tools in the market which it can helpful for us. So those for the testing the API manually and the automation. So this is what we will discuss for tomorrow. So once after this session, so in the next session we will take about the basic differences of this one all. So now we have been completed these two for this particular week. Next week, we will slightly touch about the BDD and JSON path and all these things. Once we complete this, then we jump for the rest assured on Sunday, next Sunday, and we will show how we will write the code for the get request, post request, get the data, do the accessions, doing it all. So those all things we will show it on Sunday. So this is what the plan. If you are able to complete on the Sunday, it's okay, or else we will have, if we extend it, so we will spend some time on this. For all 4 requests, we will take it. How to do for all these particular 4 requests, we will explain in our sessions. Okay, that's it for today. And I think we have been exceeded already the time. Sorry for that. And if you have any questions, you can stay back, or else if you are done, thank you so much for all your time and support. Let's catch back tomorrow on the session on this particular aspects. Thanks all.
Thank you,
Have a
Krish.
great day.
Tomorrow
Thank
same
you,
time,
Krish.
right?
Yeah, same time.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
Krish.
all.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
all.
Chris.
See you. Bye.
Thank you.
Is this the same Zoom link
Thank you,
for
Chaitanya.
tomorrow also?
Yes, yes. We can use the same Zoom link.
Thank you, Chaitanya.
Thank you.
Same timing tomorrow.
Yes, yes. Same time, Anna.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any questions, guys?
Thank you.